back to School Talk with Child Connections. We are talking about school discipline in the Sarasota County school systems, and we're going to get more specific in this segment. And my guest today is Mark Zimmerman. He's a board-certified criminal law attorney and has been telling us a lot of generalities about discipline, about what is expected of children. And welcome back. We appreciate you coming in and giving us your time and your expertise.
Thank you, Connie.
And I want to get into some real specifics, though, this time, since we've been talking generally. First, though, I do have to mention, you are going to give a talk. I don't want to forget this, Mark, because this is real important. You're presenting a class for parents as part of Parents as Partners, that workshop series. And you're going to do it October 18th.
October 16th.
16th, sorry. I put down the wrong date. October 16th from 10 to 12 at the school board offices. And that's at the Landings.
That's it.
Right off of Tamiami Trail.
You got it.
So any parents that may be listening, this would be a really good, I mean, you are going to give out some valuable information.
I will. I'm going to try.
Yeah, and just remember, the parents out there that think their kids are never going to get in trouble, it can happen, right?
It can happen.
It can happen. Okay, let's go back to the specifics. If a child does get into trouble, how should, and they're talking to the school administrator, tell us a little bit about something about that scenario, because that's usually the first place. Does a child still go to the principal's office, as they say?
Well, right. I mean, this is where the school district and I probably are going to part company a little bit. But naturally, the child has to follow the directions of the school. When the school says, you need to come to the office, Johnny or Jane needs to go to the office, obviously. But this is America. Our children have rights. They don't give them all away just because they're under 18 or because they go off to school. Specifically, not to bore people with the legal details, but our Constitution, the United States Constitution, in the Fifth Amendment, guarantees us the privilege against self-incrimination, which means no one can be forced to be a witness against themselves. So to be concrete about that, when an administrator or a school resource officer, we have police officers at our schools now,
right, question
our children about their disciplinary conduct, remember, that investigation, you don't want to think of it as an investigation, but it is an investigation, can lead to expulsion and it can lead to criminal prosecution. Therefore, we need to tell our children, do not speak to school administrators or school resource officers until you talk to your parents. Now, the school is not going to appreciate what I'm saying because they're going to feel that I'm getting in the way of their performing essential functions. And I can apologize to them for that. But when it comes down to a parent dealing with their child, who's going to be looking out for your child more than you, mom or dad? So we need to let the schools know and our children know you can still talk to Officer Friendly or Principal Wilson, but mom and dad need to be there first, and mom and dad need to talk to you first. So that's what we're counseling our children to do. Call us.
Well, now how does a child, we want our children to be respectful to the school administrator.
Absolutely.
So how does a child say, they just say, may I call my, does the parent coach them? May I call my parents before we talk? I mean, it's kind of hard for a kid,
It is hard. It's hard for adults. So I'm not saying that this is going to be an easy thing to do, and quite frankly, that's why sometimes in these scenarios, lawyers ultimately are necessary. But our children face a lot of difficult situations, and what is the best advice that people give parents? Talk to your children. So whether it's talking about sexual issues or drug-related issues, we don't think, boy, we need to talk to our children about protecting them from our schools. Well, no, it's not that we're protecting them from our schools. What it is that we're protecting them from getting into needless trouble. And listen, Connie, I believe in our schools, and I believe that
Absolutely.
In the vast majority of scenarios, the school is going to do right by our children. But my concern is that those percentage cases where perhaps they're not. I see those cases in my law practice, and I'm telling you that the way to prevent those situations is to simply make sure that you are present before your children sign anything, before they write anything, or before they say anything. Now, it's hard because we're going to want, how do children discern between a minor incident
right.
and something more serious? Well, again, that's going to be something that parents are going to have to figure out with their children.
And they're going to have to talk to their children. I'm
to
glad you
talk to
keep
them.
saying that. Talk to your children and
Absolutely.
read the book.
Absolutely.
And tell them the book again.
And when in doubt, call a lawyer.
And when in doubt, call a lawyer.
Sure.
But hopefully you know that if a parent educates a child, they know how to handle that kind of situation.
Exactly.
Now, what about, I've heard something about witness statements. What are those?
Well, the school has their own policies and procedures, and naturally they want to keep records of these things. So when there is a disciplinary incident, naturally they're going to want evidence. See, doesn't this sound like a criminal court case?
This sounds like a court
right.
case.
So that's what these witness statements are. In my practice, I've seen many times, frequently, often, these children's witness statements given to an assistant principal or given to a lunch aide or given to a school resource officer end up in juvenile court. And when you realize that that can happen, it makes you really think twice about whether or not you want your children to deal with these things and sign them on their
Now,
own.
help me out here a little bit, though. A children's witness statement, is it something the child writes?
Absolutely.
Or that somebody writes about the child?
Well, it's supposed to be written by the children. I've had incidents where the child dictated it and an administrator wrote it out, but it's in that scenario it's going to be signed by the child. And let me also say this: this concept of understanding what you're signing or what you're reading, that goes to parents too. What happens in disciplinary cases, especially when there's a recommendation for expulsion, is the parent will be presented ultimately something called the settlement agreement. Now, the settlement agreement might be something that the parent wants to explore. Well, they're certainly going to want to explore it, but they may want to ultimately sign and execute that agreement. But too many times, parents come to me, they said, I've already signed the settlement agreement, but now I'm not happy with what I've agreed to. What you need to do is read it carefully. If you don't understand it or don't understand the consequences of what you're signing, you need to speak with the parent liaison. You need to consult the handbook and school board rules. And again, you may need to consult an attorney.
So it is possible they can take that statement home and look at it. I mean, they don't have to sign it before they leave school.
Absolutely. In fact, what I've found is that there is an amount of pressure applied by school administration to get these settlement agreements signed because they want to resolve the case. Remember, I said the school administration is set up to educate our children. They don't want to operate as a mini criminal justice system. So they want to move it through, get those settlement agreements signed. And you know what, in the end, perhaps the settlement agreement is the best result for your child. But don't go ahead and sign away your children's rights without knowing what you're getting into. Exactly.
Thank you so much, Mark Zimmer.
Thank you
and
for
we
having
look
me.
forward to your talk on October 16th at the school board office on the Landings.
Great. Thank you,
And
Connie.
we'll be back.